My name is Elizabeth Cope, and I'm from Ireland. And I have been painting for over 50 years. I went to art school mainly in London, and I lived in London for 6 years, which opened my mind to so many wonderful things, not just painting, but music, and including jazz and opera and ballet and all the art forms, and sculpture, painting, the whole gamut, and going to wonderful places to visit such wonderful works of art. It's very easy to get an education in London for free.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
At least it was then, because most museums and galleries in London are free to visit anyway. And then I came back to Ireland when I was 25, having been there for 6 years, and I met my husband Jeffrey, and we had 3 children. But I've always been painting, even no matter what happened. I still paint. So I have a very big exhibition at the moment in Carlow, in a place called Visual, which is a wonderful big space, and a very good curator called Benjamin Stafford, with his very wonderful colleagues, chose the paintings, and it's been many people are coming to see the exhibition, which is good. So that's basically what I am. I live in an old house on a farm, not far away from Carlow, only about 11 miles. So I'm pretty local, actually.
Thank you so much, dear Elizabeth. Now, do you
It's a
want to
pleasure.
tell me? Do you want to tell me about your early childhood in Ireland or also in England? Tell me a bit
Yes,
about yourself.
yes. Well, my father was a dairy farmer, and my mother had a kind of a grocery store. This is before supermarkets were invented. And in fact, my parents were like a social services center for everybody. My father had to, maybe if a woman was having twins, he'd have to take her to the hospital, or, and people would pay for their food on the never, never. Oftentimes we never got paid. So that's the kind of childhood I had. Kind of extrovert. We were brought up in the middle of a village, and our cows used to be brought down every twice a day to be milked. So I had a really rich childhood, because my father was interested in us going to visit monuments and all that sort of stuff. And his sisters were very musical. My aunt was quite a good pianist. She used to play Chopin to me. But I think I had a very, very rich childhood overall. We used to sing in a choir, and I think that's very important, singing in unison with other people. And then I went to London when I was 19, and I stayed in a hostel for 2 years, and I got a job teaching and different jobs. And, I think I'm very skeptical about art schools. I don't think art schools are good places, really. They're not very good for very young people. I was 22 before I went to art school full time. And I went to the Chelsea School of Art and Sir John Cass. And in fact, the best places were the places where you weren't doing anything formal. I painted Quentin Crisp. He was a famous model. He wrote a book called The Naked Civil Servant. So I really had a very good education. I'm very trigger happy, Obehi. No, I'm a bit skeptical about art schools, because everybody does the same thing, and I think you need a bit of life under your belt before you decide to go to art schools. Um, I think that there's so many young people who go there, and it's all about kind of copying. Everyone is doing the same thing, and I can't see anything in that at all. And also too, I'm against people drawing from photographs. It's not a crime. It's not a crime, but it means the person is lazy. They're not using their own eye. It's better to draw what you see rather than what you think you see. And anybody at all, any fool can get a painting, can get a photograph and project it onto a canvas and copy it. I can't see the point in that. You might as well become a photographer as that. And I like photography exhibitions in their own pure form. London was wonderful. I went into London in 1971, and I stayed in a hostel for 2 years in Victoria. And I got a job in an office with a very nice English lady called Miss Holland. And she probably was an accountant, and she was probably about 75 when I was 19. And she was so kind to me. Then it was an advertising agency in Piccadilly, and I was like her assistant. And she even gave me a good reference when I found a job teaching in a prep school for boys. And she gave me a glowing reference, but she was incredible. And I learned a lot from her. For example, I've never seen anybody's handwriting so beautiful as hers. Apparently, during the war, she was always so busy using her right hand that she decided to train her left hand to write because her hand used to get so tired. So much so that she became left-handed. But I've never seen such lovely handwriting. So the same too, going back to drawing, and most people actually can draw if they put their minds to it. You know, like most people can sing in tune if you get a choir together. I really believe that, but it's just laziness on our part. If you say you can't do something, you will never do it. So I believe in saying you can do everything. You know, for example, I paint every subject under the sun. I paint human skeletons. I paint nude people, people with clothes. I paint interior still lives. I paint a mixture of people and interiors. I don't put a stop to anything. I believe you can do anything if you don't say you can't do it. So basically, my subject is paint. So that's why I don't mind what I paint as long as I'm using paint. It's an excuse actually to put down paint. Does that make any sense?
A lot of sense
Yeah.
in that. Okay, that is a theme that I work on, business mindset. But I
Yes.
like the whole question of mindset in
Yes.
itself. No, one thing that I like to sort of cite a number of occasions is that if you believe that you can do something, you are right,
Yes.
and if you believe that you cannot do something, you're equally right. So
Well,
in any way, you are right. It depends on what do you make of it.
yes. It's really about attitude. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
and
where it
also,
all ends.
and also to people, we put each other down too often, you know. And
Mhm.
I think I learned a lesson the hard way. Um, Someone said to me, she was actually a young girl, she was 17, and she said to me, I was 22 when I went to art school full time. And she said to me, Elizabeth, did you break your nose when you were young? I was taken aback by this. I mean, okay, I have my father's conquer, and I'm quite proud of this old knob of mine. And in a way, I thought about it. First, I was kind of taken aback, and then I said, no, this is a compliment. People are far too touchy about what people say. I always find when people put you down, always take it as a compliment because it means you're not indifferent to them or they're not indifferent to you. And it's not that I want people to be nice for the wrong reasons or horrible for the wrong reasons, but I think we're far too touchy about so-called insults. An insult is a compliment, really, if we were to look at it and analyze it in a cold-hearted way.
That is the mindset in it now.
Yeah,
The same rain that falls. Some people they will cause the rain. Oh, why did the rain fall today? The
yes.
same rain. Another person will say, "Oh, thank God it rained today." It's the
And
same thing.
yes, we're never happy, are we? We're never happy. It's the human condition. We are always. I find that when people complain all the time, um,
Mhm.
they have no right to complain because everyone is in a position of some misery. I always find that if I complain to someone, I then realize that the person I'm speaking to has far more problems than I have. Of course, there are people who are suffering hugely because of war or because of some awful thing that has happened to them. And that's understandable as well. But the people who are really troubled never speak, unfortunately. That's the sad part.
Now, I'm interested in something. When you were explaining just now, you did mention the fact that you painted everything under the sun. That is quite
Yes,
interesting. Now,
yes.
you painted skeleton and many other things. Those images that you paint, what did they mean to you?
Well, that's a good question. I try not to think too much about it. To me, the if a person sits for me, or if I'm doing a still life, I have to treat everything of equal value. I can't say that your eye is better than your ear or your scarf around your neck is better than either. Paint is just an abstraction anyway. It's a flat surface, and it's just, as I say, the subject matter is an excuse in which to put down the paint. That is not to say that the person sitting for you is not, that a cup is superior to a person sitting for you. I have to be kind of even about that. Otherwise, I wouldn't paint any subject at all. I might be just throwing paint on a canvas in a very stupid way. Maybe I'm doing that as well, of course.
Now, tell me about the painting itself. How much does solitude play in the role of an artist? I have written a series of articles on solitude that in 2020, at the heart of the COVID-19 situation, I did a lot of interview with people, trying to understand what was going on, how they were living this moment of isolation, if you want to call it like that.
Yes.
Then in that same period, I wrote a series of articles that I titled "The Power of Solitude."
Yes.
Now, what I try to express there is that we should not be living our lives in a bubble. We should instead try to deepen our life by sometimes retiring from the public and going
Yes.
alone in some isolated places, if you want to call it like that, where you
Yes.
can commune with your source.
Yes.
So, of course, it depends on our level of maturity now. If we look back, even in our history, where we are coming from, we see
Yes.
that the masters of the time, whether you're looking at Galileo, you're looking at Jesus, you're looking at Buddha, you're looking at Muhammad,
Yes.
from time to time, they have to return to isolated places. Only then
Yes.
alone, connect to the source.
Yes.
So it means that in isolation, we really are we are able to recharge our energy as human being, as
Yes.
natural entity.
Yes.
So tell me, what role does isolation plays in your work? Is it helpful to you? Is it
Yes.
positive or negative to you? Help me
Oh,
understand it.
absolutely, absolutely positive, Obehi. I think that, especially if you're kind of an extrovert person, you need definitely to recharge your batteries. I completely agree with what you said. I think we have to look deeper, and I think a lot of good has come out of this pandemic. A lot of good things have happened. I know maybe there were people who were living together and didn't get on. That might have been a very sad time, but a lot of people, I think, and especially a lot of women, have done very well because they have managed now so that they can even now work from home, and makes their lives that much more simple. But apart from that, I think solitude is essential. It definitely gave us time to think and time. We were able to do physical. I was able to get on with the painting as well, which was good. And people were nicer and made a better effort to help each other as well. But the isolation thing was good. I thought it was very good for me and for my husband. We were able to manage. Um, it was difficult as well, but overall, I think we learned a lot from it. It brought us back to reality in a way.
Mhm. Thank you for that. All right, now, how do you get started painting? How did you tell me about it? What motivated you into painting?
Well, I'll tell you, this is very simple. When I was 9 years old, my sister came home from Paris, having been an au pair there for a year, and she gave me a box of oil paints. So basically, I think it was the smell of the oil paint that maybe seduced me into becoming a painter. I really mean that, the smell. And then she also gave me a little book in pictures of the Bible in pictures. And one of the paintings was of by Rembrandt. It was Christ on the Cross by Rembrandt, and that stuck with me from when I was 9. But I didn't make my mind up until I was 19 to become a painter. I just had a eureka moment. I was in a little tiny bedsit in Dublin where I had a job in a television rental agency. And at night I would go to the College of Art just for an evening class. And I had this eureka moment, and I said, this is what I want to be, a painter. I was 19 then.
And is there any way that maybe your mindset or the kind of mindset that you have influence your work as a painter?
I suppose yes, because it means you become a single-minded person, really. Even though like most women, I'm good at multitasking. It's part of who we are. I think to be a multitasker is a great thing. We can manage lots of things. But I'd like to think we can specialize as well.
Mhm. All right. And if you were to say maybe this is a key message that run through your painting, your work as a painter, what would
Yes.
that message be, for example?
Well, it's hard to say. The most important thing is not to try and be like other people, just to be yourself and to work from life rather than from photographs. I mean, of course, you use your imagination as well, but by you drawing from life, you're depending on your own eye rather than depending on the camera. Everyone uses the camera far too much. I mean, it's okay just for as an aid memoir, but um, people are winning competitions for drawing from photographs. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's very easy to see when a person has copied from photographs. But that's the thing. Just be yourself. It's like if I said to you, I want a stew, but you make a tin of you have a tin of stew from a tin and you make it out of that. No, get the raw ingredients and you start from scratch yourself because then you have your own autonomy. You're not copying other people. Everybody wants to be like everyone else. Like everyone has the same straightened teeth. We all look so homogenized, and so it's much better to be your own person. That's why I say to people, please don't copy my painting. Just make your own painting. I mean, I know maybe once you might say, well, maybe copy from the old masters one painting, but I wouldn't go beyond that. People are copying other people too much, and that makes me very annoyed.
I
Well, not
like
really.
that.
I just kind of, I can't see the point.
All right. Now, talking of painting, I'm trying to understand. Uh, okay, now you got this inspiration, you got this encounter, you started to paint. But when did you realize that painting was actually going to be your thing, that you were going to dedicate more time doing it? I mean, tell me when was the time that you had it, the real
Well,
conviction that you
well,
really wanted to paint?
yes, I had it when I was in my little bedsit in Tritonville Road in Sandymount in Dublin. I was that was my eureka moment. I knew I was 19 and I said that's what I wanted to be was to be a painter. So then I went to London at the age of 19. I went to London, I think that September with my sister, and London opened my whole life in painting and in all of the arts really. There's so many wonderful things there to learn from and to see, and and people were wonderful to me. I had no, I had people were very generous and kind, and so I think London is a great city. It's a friendly city. There's many things to learn for free. I mean, I saw Nureyev dance with Margot Fontaine. I listened to great singers like Elizabeth Schwarzkopf, and I went to a jazz club on my own. Actually, I didn't stay too long, I must admit, but you know, you can have a whole broad-based education for little to for very little money.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
It's a pleasure.
All right. Do you want to tell me what is the thing that actually motivates you in painting?
Um, well, I suppose firstly, I like to paint in the daylight. I don't paint in the middle of the night. And I can't understand why every artist wants a north light. I like light coming in from every angle. I love to have windows everywhere. Um, I'm not an easy studio painter. I have a studio, but I like to paint. The way some cooks like to paint out. They like to cook outside on a small little primus stove or a little primitive cooking thing. That's the way I like. I paint like the way chefs cook in a kind of a make-up situation. I mean, I could paint in a cupboard or anywhere. It doesn't bother me. I can paint at the streets, as I did when I went to Sao Paulo. I painted in Somalia. I painted in. I was in Iran. I painted in Iran a few years ago. I went to Iran when I was 20 with a girl from Bolivia, and the Shah was there at the time, and you didn't have to wear the hijab. So my husband and I went back a few years ago, and I went painting there again. I'm inspired by people, landscape, and travel is part of that as well.
And before you did make mention of exhibition. Do you want to tell me more about
Yes,
that?
yes. But the exhibition in Carlow, which is called Visual, is the name of the centre. Um, it was built about 12 years ago, and it has all kinds of things. It has a theatre in it, the Bernard Shaw Theatre, where they put on all kinds of plays and musical events, and um, they have film festivals, all kinds of different things there. And the staff are amazing. There's something happening every week. There's a pantomime on this week, and there's there's another girl exhibiting beside me called Cleena Timoney, and she has lovely stuff. It's like she's making sculptures of the entrails of a human body, and she lives on a farm in Donegal, and she's lovely. And her surname is Timoney, and it comes from the Irish word ag tomont, which is to drive. And she said her family were cattle drivers, where they would from the farm, they would drive the cattle to the city, probably to Derry or probably to Belfast, I don't know. But she was a lovely girl and a lovely artist. So, but I had the biggest space in Carlow. They were very kind because I've got these very large paintings which I've been doing over the last several years, and the space lends itself. And it's the way they curated the show has made it really magical. And we have lots of people coming to see it, and I want everyone to see it. You know, and people are always intellectualizing art, and that makes me cross because we have in Ireland, well, there are in every country some very beautiful works of art. We have these high crosses, and there's one nearby where I was born called Moon High Cross, and it's an 8th century, 9th century high cross, 16 feet high, and and it has depictions of the Old and New Testament. And these were designed for people to learn about the Bible, people who couldn't read or write. And I think far too many people know too much about art now. I think art is an emotional response. It's not an intellectual response. And I think people are now writing too many words about their subject. Why not become a writer if you're going to? I don't like to see words in the museum. I want to see objects. People go to art schools now and they have to write 20,000 words. What is all that about? They're visual. They're supposed to be visual, and they have to. But the other thing is too, you cannot force anyone to think the way you want to think about the painting. The viewer is just as important as the painter who made it or the artist who made it. The viewer has as much importance. The viewer is part of the deal. You have the work of art, you have the creator, and you have the audience. The audience is just as important, I believe, because if a painting calls you over to it, then it has worked. Even if you don't like the painting, at least you have an opinion about it. You either, if you don't like it, at least that's an opinion, and it's better than being indifferent. Everyone is so kind of so limited now because you have a group, you have the football people, and then you have the horsey people, and then you have the arty people. And I don't really like arty types. I like people who create something without all the talk and bother. I like just I want to see what they do. Like you could talk about food all night, but you could still get hungry. It's not enough for it to be virtuous. You have to have. It's a physical thing to eat the food, isn't it? So a painting is a bit like that as well. You have to be able to eat it if you like, or to enjoy it.
I love that. That's very powerful. What you
I
said
think
there.
so.
You,
Yeah,
you can talk about food and still be hungry.
yes, exactly. That's exactly it. And and there's a lot of snobbery in food as well. I get so annoyed with people being snobbish about food. You only enjoy food when the simple food is the best food, and because then you can do whatever you like after that. It's if somebody hands me a bread and butter sandwich, I am so grateful because I didn't have to prepare it. You know,
Hmm.
it's there's too much snobbishness about food, as the way there's too much snobbishness about art, because it's if someone likes it and is moved by it, I think that's powerful.
Hmm. What is your preferred type of food? What is your favorite food?
Food. Well,
Yeah.
anything. I eat all kinds of things. I eat everything and anything. I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, though I did eat vegetarian food for a year in London, with a friend, and we ate brown rice, Hellman's mayonnaise, and hard-boiled eggs for a year, and I couldn't touch any of it for about a year later. And then some years later, we went to India, and we stayed in a hotel, and all the food was vegan. And it was delicious, So I mean, I'm very open-minded about food, but people, one day they're a vegetarian, the next day they eat a pig's ear, the next day that they're just chopping and changing, and there are genuine cases where people have allergies. I mean, I really respect that as well, but people now are so, the best, if I had a restaurant, I'd call it take it or leave it. I wouldn't give them a choice, hunger makes the best sauce, as they say. Hunger makes the best sauce.
I like that. I like that. All right. Now, in your painting, I'm sort of curious. How much does your being from Ireland play a part in the kind of painting that you do? How much does that reflect in it?
It's a difficult question. I'm not sure, because, in fact, Irish people, generally speaking, we're usually more verbal and more into writing, because the reason it's to do with climate, actually, I think, because, like, say, if you're from the south of France or somewhere, you have nice summers. There's no doubt about that. I know the winters can be harsh in parts, but it's to do with climate. It's very rare, I think, to get good painters from Ireland, generally speaking. But there are many good artists in Ireland who are living today, and so. But it's only because people are doing art now more so than ever. I think but it's a good question, and I don't really know the answer. As I said, poets mainly came from Ireland, but I think poetry is the one side of the brain that I can understand. I understand poetry, and always has done, because poets relate very well to painting. For whatever reason, it's a distillation of their words, maybe. But generally speaking, painters didn't really come out of Ireland, except maybe if they were, I suppose, doing the lovely drawings in the Book of Kells, and I don't know really. But
Mhm. All
it's
right.
a
That's
very
fair
difficult
enough.
question. I think
That's
it's
fair
very
enough.
accidental. It's an accident, really. It's an accident.
all, all right.
I'm sorry not to give you a straight answer. I apologize.
Oh, there is nothing to apologize.
Yeah.
Whatever you say is okay because this is your time to say your own truth. So
Thank you
whatever
very
is
much.
it that come from you is the original.
Thank you very much. You're very kind. Thank you.
Thanks to you. All right. Now, let's talk about learning because everyone learned from somewhere or from someone or from something, if you like.
Yes.
Did you have to learn from someone when you were learning how to paint? Who were these people that inspire you? I mean, other painters before you.
Yes. Oh, yes. Many painters. A lot of them probably have been dead or are dead. Of course, you're inspired by many painters. I mean, there's one artist I'm very fond of, and even though he's more of a sculptor, is Giacometti. Um, I know there were two. There was a lovely exhibition of his work in Dublin there in the summer, and we went up twice to see it. And it was a small exhibition, but it was very powerful. Quite a few of his paintings, his early paintings, and you see, Giacometti he sculpted his brother Diego many times in clay. He was his main subject, and I like his work because these figures are emaciated, and as you get older, I don't know what age you are, Obehi. I presume you're very young, but life throws rocks at all of us, no matter who we are. You could be from any background and anything, and life throws its own type of rocks at you. And then it's like as if in Giacometti's sculpture, there's so many rocks thrown at the person that becomes so thin and emaciated and worn out and refined as well at the same time. That's why getting older has a good lot of good things going for it from the point of view of your confidence. I mean, I'm 70 now, and I'm very happy in myself as a human being. I'm not afraid of anyone. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not even afraid of the bike manager. That's a joke, by the way. But a bit afraid of him, actually. But confidence comes with age, even though you might feel you were confident all the time, but you kind of hid it away a bit. But now that I'm 70, I think painting has the longest what's the word, service that you have to learn over. It's the longest apprenticeship of all subjects, I think. It's a long. I mean, painters are very slow to mature. Speaking for myself, and I think sculptors as a group are much more down to earth because of what they use, the physicality of their work. I always find sculptors more down to earth to talk to, but that's another subject.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
I,
true.
I mean,
That's true.
the obvious one. People say, "Oh, you're like Matisse." I mean, that's a great compliment, but or the colorists and all that, and that's great too. But one is influenced by many people, and a bit of this and a bit of that, and you kind of make your own mark in the end. I'm very fond of a painter called Alice Neal. She died in 1984. She was born in 1900, and she was a wonderful painter. She painted people in, I suppose, in interiors and family, and you know, I think her work is very moving.
Yeah, I want you to tell me something. Is there any painting of yours that have inspired people the most, or that have inspired you the most? Why?
I don't know yet. I'm only finding that out now as as time goes on. My paintings have changed a lot. People expect me to do, say, still life or something, but I mean, I do a mixture of everything. I'm not going to be typecast into my little corner, and I think it's always good that to keep an open mind about what you paint. I mean, I don't have plans about what I'm going to paint. I might have a rough idea, and I don't make drawings of what I'm going to do. Occasionally, I might do a quick sketch, but generally speaking, I draw alongside my painting practice. I don't. I just ad lib all the time, actually, which is kind of a bit frightening, but that's the way I operate. I mean, if I were to wait for a quiet moment, I'd never paint. So I paint in the midst of chaos.
What do you mean chaos? Explain.
Now, for example, when you get up in the morning and you make your bed, you feel, gosh, I've done something decent today. But but I suppose it's because I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother. I work around each day that present. If the day presents itself, whichever way, I work around that. But the discipline of working in the morning from 9 to 2 is very important to me. I have to admit, since I knew I was putting on the exhibition, I've been very busy doing other things. Doing there's an awful lot of administration, which is such a painful subject. I'd rather just get on and do a bit of painting and just let someone else do the admin. And it's the same in everyone's job now. I mean, I think doctors or anyone has to do paperwork with a job, whatever subject it is. A lot of it is filling in forms and all that sort of stuff, which ruins everything. But what can you do?
In your work, how much does your personal life get reflected in it?
But I think it does. But you can't. It's hard to separate it. Of course, there are paintings that look like people I know, but I mean, of course, it's personal. Everything is personal, really. But I mean, I try not to title them so personally, but sometimes it's inevitable. Um, it's inevitable. You can't be completely detached, if you like. But I do think, though, when you are painting, I paint as if I'm scraping carrots. I try not to say, "Oh gosh, I'm painting." If you make a big deal about something, it kind of loses some impact. When you're dancing and you're dancing with someone around the room, suddenly you lose your balance and you can't remember your steps. When you think too much, you can lose something.
Yeah.
So I think to be a really good artist, you have to have two strands going. At one level, you have to have the subconscious working, and at the other level, you have to be like a surgeon. You have to get the thing done. You have to be practical. You have to be, what's the word, pragmatic. It's a contradiction, pragmatic and then the subconscious. They're like two different strands that yeah, like if someone is going to have an accident where you're going to try and save them in front of you, say you're on the street and something happens. I mean, your instinct is to help someone, and that's the way to do it. To let your natural um, sensitivity work according to the time and space that you're in.
Yeah, you mean when you are painting, you let your natural instinct just flow and lead you? Is
Yes,
that what you mean? Can you talk
yes,
more about that?
yes. I mean, I might have a model in front of me, or I might have a landscape in front of me, or I might have an interior still life or people talking. I like people moving and talking when I'm painting them, you know, because life is moving all the time. There's this constant movement, and I like the energy of that because um, when you paint from a photograph, people are stiff and they look stiff, So I like the freedom of the person. I mean, I don't have any. I keep an open mind.
Is that supposed to be something that you have to learn, or is it natural that you just allow it to flow, as
I
if maybe you are revealing a kind of an internal truth or something? Help me
Yes.
understand that.
Well, it's a bit of both. You often hear of people saying, "Oh my gosh, if someone is drunk, they can tell you the truth. They can be tactless, or they can say something that might be too near the bone." So, in a way, the artist's role at one level is to be the tactless person, the person to say that there is an elephant in the room, whatever. It might be a small thing, it doesn't matter. But occasionally, those tactless remarks can be good. I don't mean one should do it as a consistent. It's not very nice, I suppose, to be totally direct. But then if you're too mindful of stuff, if you're aware of what you're doing all the time, like it's all about vanity. It's about the artist's vanity. We have to leave our vanity outside the door every time we paint, because once the vanity comes into a work, what doesn't matter what it is, whether you're singing, dancing, painting, if the vanity comes into it, then it kills the painting. Like, I like to leave a painting kind of unfinished, because who am I to say what's finished? You can push things as far as you can, and then you can kill them as well and bring them back to life again. But I think a lot of vanity comes into art, and that's when it goes wrong. That's when it doesn't work.
Mhm.
I don't know whether I'm making any sense or not.
You're making a lot of sense. Like I already said before, here, what comes from you is original, so it remains the way it is.
Yes, yes. Yes. I think if you keep, I think, I think is to, it's important to let the viewer finish a few marks for you.
Yeah.
When you cook, when you make a certain type of food, like a souffle, you can, if you or a second more and it's dead. If you push things, the way you get food, sometimes it might be undercooked or it might be overcooked. Painting is the same. It's the same sort of alchemy.
All right. Now, Elizabeth, I want you to help me with another thing. Have you had the occasion of passing your knowledge on to other persons, maybe younger artists who are learning how to paint? Anything like that you want to share with me?
Well, I think the most important thing is to be yourself and to not copy people, just to find your own way. Be comfortable in your own skin. It's to follow your own. All you need is one person to believe in you apart from yourself. It's not important to have quantity of people to believe in you when you're starting out. And don't and the more people put you down, the stronger you should get. Use it as a scratching post, if you like.
All right. Now, what is your satisfaction in what you do? Now, you take your time to paint and to paint and to paint again. What is your satisfaction?
Well, I suppose I don't really. I just find when you painting, it's like a release. I haven't painted now for a good bit, and I'm very keen to get back and start it. Um, I don't really know. The most important thing is to be kind to people along your way. I think kindness is more important than anything in this world, because everyone is in competition with each other, and none of us is more important than the next person. We never are, we never will be, and that's the way it should be. So we must help each other. Everyone has a talent in some way. I don't care who they are. We all have a talent, and it's a question is we have to support each other. I mean, that's really more important than my satisfaction at the end of the day, because I have to. We commune with other people. Getting on with other people is more important than anything else. It's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And I mean that sincerely, because um, a work of art will only live on when we're all dead. The life force, when the life has gone out of all of us, then it's the real test whether the paintings are any good or not.
Now, what would be your final thought here, considering what we have discussed today? How would you like to conclude the conversation? Maybe with a message or something that you feel should be said.
The most important thing is to keep your ego under your hat and to learn from other people. If you keep learning, we're learning all the time, and to respect the people around you who are helping you, and to help them as well. If you're just after your own selfish results, it's not getting you anywhere. I mean, all anybody wants is to get by with other people. That's the most important thing. It's not about anything other than that. Just to get by, do your bit, and just get on with other people, and that brings in happiness to everyone. That is it's harmony. Harmony is very important. I think we have to be more harmonious. And singing. We went to a party the other night, a private house, and we were singing carols, and it was so nice. Everybody sang, and so nice. Everybody made an effort. So I think people can draw. Most people can draw if they say if they put their minds to it, to keep drawing and to collect, say, paper like the back of say a pizza packet, cornflakes packet. Keep all those scraps of paper and make them into a notebook and do drawings. There was an artist. This is the one thing I'll finish on. There's an artist called James Castle. I think he's dead now. He was from the Midwest in America, and was a deaf mute, which means he couldn't speak and he couldn't hear. And he was also very poor. And the only thing he could find to paint on was a bit of the back of a toothpaste packet. He used soot, spit, and sometimes a bit of lipstick. And you can look up his work, James Castle. I think he might have died in 1973 or thereabouts. I'm not exactly sure, but like these are the people you could go to learn about painting. You don't need expensive materials. You can get started. It doesn't matter how you begin, just do it. Action is more important than talking about it. That's my last word. And everyone has talent. Everyone has talent in some respect. And we must respect the people who are helping us around us all the time, because they're there every day, minding us, looking after us. And we have to show a bit of gratitude and give them space to do their creativity as well. It's about receiving and giving, and not just being a one-way ticket. That's really what it's about.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you very much, Obehi.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewanfo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.